Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Christina from Our Wood Home. Today I'm going to be doing something very interesting and new to me, so I thought I would film it and take you along and maybe do an update video in a few months to see how this whole process went. What I'm going to be doing is water glassing eggs for long-term storage. And I want to kind of put a general disclaimer. This food preservation method is not considered safe or best practice by a lot of experts, so do with that information what you will. In my opinion, after doing research, my husband and I agreed that this was something we wanted to try. What is water glassing? Basically, it's taking some fresh eggs from your backyard chickens, not washing them, making sure they're clean, and then mixing a solution of pickling lime and water and storing your eggs in that solution long term. I've read that they can last over a year. I'm not going to be letting them sit for a year. The reason we wanted to try this is because our chickens stop laying eggs in the late fall up until the spring. They go through their molting period where they lose all their feathers, and all of their energy is spent growing new feathers, not laying eggs. That means we don't have eggs. That means we have to either buy eggs from the store or just not have eggs for several months, and neither of those are options we really liked. So let's just get into this. This is my first time doing it. I am not giving you a tutorial. I'm just showing you what I'm doing, and you can do your own research and see if this is something you would like to try. If you think it's ridiculous or some other adjective, I hope that you'll still watch the video because I think it could be interesting. And let me know if you would like to see an update about how these eggs are doing in the winter. What I'm going to do first is just check all my eggs. These are fresh from my chickens. I don't think you can use store-bought eggs because those have been washed. And when you wash an egg, you're washing off the protective coating that comes from the chicken. This is called a bloom. It's invisible now, but if you've ever picked up a freshly laid egg, right as the chicken has laid it, you might see this wet layer evaporating. That's called the bloom. So the reason you want to keep the bloom intact in general is just for longer term storage. We actually keep our eggs on the counter until we're ready to use them because the bloom acts as a protective layer to stop them from going bad, within reason, of course. So I'm just going to check all of these, make sure they are clean, there's no mud or waste on them, because we can't water glass eggs that are dirty like that. I also get a lot of little pieces of straw on my eggs from my chickens because of their bedding materials, so I'm just going to make sure there's no little pieces of straw because the eggs have to be clean. I'm only working with 11 eggs right now. I don't think those will all fit in my container, but I did have 12 and I got one wet when I was washing dishes because these were right next to the sink, so I set that one aside not to use for water glassing. We wanted to try this method because it's a shelf-stable preservation method that kind of keeps the integrity of the fresh egg taste. So I'm hoping it works out. When I've done just eggs in the fridge over the winter, that was fine, but it takes up a lot of space and we don't have that kind of space. So I think if this works, it's going to be really cool, and I'm excited for my husband to taste a water glassed egg when he goes to make one for his breakfast in the winter. I honestly don't eat eggs. I've never liked the taste of eggs, but I will use them in baking. I just don't have scrambled eggs or fried eggs or anything like that. All right, this egg, it looked clean, but I can see there's a lot of mud that's dried onto it. So I'm not even going to use this one. This one will just be set aside to use another time. So now I have 10 eggs to use. I don't know that they'll all fit in this big jar. I think they will, but I'm just gonna see what I can fit in here. This jar is a wide-mouthed Bernard and Mason jar. It's 1,400 milliliters. It's been washed and dried. So to make the solution, we need a kitchen scale because we have to weigh the pickling lime. So I've got my jar. And I need 1 ounce. I think what I'm actually going to do is half this recipe, or this method, I guess. So the original sources that I found for water glassing said to do 1 ounce of pickling lime for every 1 quart of water. Now I'm in Canada, so we don't use quarts. So I converted that to milliliters, and it's about 950 milliliters. And my jar is 1,400 milliliters right to the top. When I continued reading those tutorials, they said to use a gallon-sized jar and only fill it halfway with water and then put your eggs in so it doesn't overflow. Again, in Canada, we don't really use gallons that much, and I've never seen a gallon jar. So I'm going to half this recipe. I'm going to use 55 ounces of pickling lime because that's what's in the jar. And I'm going to use half the quantity of water since I don't want my jar to overflow. And I'm not going to do 2 jars right now. I hope that all makes sense. It makes sense in my head, so let's hope it makes sense to you as well. All right, I've got my quantity of water. Since I'm doing half, it's 475 milliliters. I actually wish that I had measured this into a smaller container so that it was easier to mix with the water, because that's going to be kind of hard to mix it in this jar. I also don't have a whisk, so I think I'm just going to use my metal skewer, maybe this part, because it's a little bit better than just the pointy part. It is going to look a little bit milky, and over time the lime's going to settle on the bottom, and that's perfectly normal according to everything I've read. Now, I've seen a few different methods for actually putting the eggs into the jar. We obviously don't want them to crack, but that's kind of hard if you're putting it in a big glass jar. So I've seen some people say to put it on the end of a spoon and put it in, or to kind of tilt the jar on its side and then fill it and then put in the lime water. I purposefully chose a wide mouth jar because my hand fits inside of it. So I think I'm just going to try to carefully place it in with just my hand. You can already see the lime is starting to separate, but that's okay according to everything I've read on the internet. All right, so pointy side down, and let's just hope that they don't crack. As I'm putting them in here, I'm noticing they are not staying pointy side down. So I'm really hoping that is okay, and that's not going to cause problems. I'm being so careful when I'm putting them in not to disturb them. And now I'm really wondering if I should have used a smaller jar. something that's not as tall. But I'll be honest, I used this one because it's too big to safely use for any of my canning recipes. It's too much volume, that's the word. So I used this one instead of using one of my canning jars because I'm saving those for canning. So as you can see, all the eggs are in here, but the water only comes up to here. So the eggs are not even fully covered. What I'm going to do is just mix up some more of this solution, of this lime solution. So I'm going to have ended up doing the full quantity, 1 quart of water and 1 ounce of lime. So now I know for next time if I'm using that jar to do the proper quantity. So let me get my scale set up again. I think I'm going to fill this with water first and then put the lime in. All right, I've got my water, setting that on the scale, zeroing the scale, and now let's get another 1/2 ounce of the lime. Okay, I've got that measured out. Mixing it with the spoon is fine. I don't think I needed to use that metal skewer. Carefully bring back my jar. I'm so paranoid about even just cracking an egg in the jar. I better get a funnel if I have a clean funnel. I'm very likely to spill that if I'm not using a funnel, so hopefully this helps. Okay, that's up to the top. All the eggs are covered. It said online that they need to be covered by at least 2 inches of water. I have a little bit of the solution left over, so I hope that's not going to pose any problems long term because the quantity and the ratio was messed up, but I guess we'll just see what happens. Some of you may be very surprised by my sort of nonchalant attitude about we'll just see what happens. Please don't misinterpret that to mean I don't care about food safety. I'm saying we'll see what happens because this is an experiment. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm not going to be feeding my family rotten eggs. Once we are ready to start consuming these, we're going to crack it into a bowl first, see if it looks bad, see if it smells bad, because you will know if an egg has gone bad. And then we'll use it if it's safe. If it's not safe, if it's gone bad, we're just going to throw out everything into the composter and we'll count it as a loss because we didn't get to eat the eggs, but it's also not a loss because we learned something. Since I don't know what the outcome's going to be, I didn't want to water glass a lot of eggs. 10 I think is a reasonable number for this experiment. I'm going to put this plastic Ball brand lid on. I'm also going to label this. I'll be able to tell it's eggs, but if I do more water glassed eggs, I want to know when each batch was started so that when we're ready to start consuming them, we can consume the oldest first. At the time of filming, it is August 28th. table. And now these are going to go in a cool, dark place. So for me, that's my basement with all my other canned goods, and that's pretty much it. Let me know if you've ever water glassed eggs before. And if you have, let me know some tips and tricks that might help me, or let me know if I've done something wrong. Also, let me know if you would like to see a follow-up video in a few months to see how the eggs have turned out. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it interesting. Be sure to subscribe to see any updates about what's going on with these water glassed eggs.